So privacy laws have been an important hot topic here at the State House here in Concord, and that continues to be the case here. We're in March of 2024, and NewHampshireBulletin.com has an article I'll put in the episode description, a guide to New Hampshire's new data privacy rights, which is does a very good outline of it. But let's take it to another level. We have Professor of Law Buzz Scherr of UNH Franklin Pierce School of Law to dive into some of the details. He wrote the constitutional amendment that New Hampshire has when it comes to privacy, and excited to have him back on the show. Welcome back, Buzz.
Great to be back, AJ.
All right, so firstly, were you surprised this bill managed to get through? It seems very comprehensive with what it's aiming to address.
It's not. I'm a little bit of a privacy nut, kind of like former Representative Neil Kirk, and kind of like you too, actually. And so it's a really strong first step in regulating interactions between businesses and individuals. The state constitutional amendment that I wrote for then Representative Neil Kirk manages the relationship between the government and individuals. There's no constitutional amendment, nor really should there be one, could there be one, that manages the relationship between a business and individual, or two individuals. That's what, contract law is about, et cetera, licensing law. So this is a good, solid first step in regulating relationships between a business and an individual, and it does it by focusing on data. It basically says, okay, you're entitled to know if business X or business Y is collecting your data, if they're storing your data. And you're entitled to have access to the data they're collecting. And you're entitled to a copy of that data. And you're entitled to opt out from them continuing to collect your data once you find out they are collecting your data. So that's all pretty powerful stuff, because it's not the way things have been up until this got passed and signed by the governor.
Yeah, definitely. That's cool. Yeah, it's Senate Bill 255. This is bipartisan, too. I mean, this is important to point out. This is something both the Republicans and Democrats, the liberty-loving crew, I'm sure, are very in favor of a lot of the stuff that's in it. Like, it's important that states begin to take up the mantle on this, because the more states that come up with laws like these, it provides a model for the feds to maybe eventually jump in on.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath on the feds jumping in, because for a couple of reasons. Well, the lobbying money that's
It's big,
operating in terms of, imagine Google, Amazon, all those companies that store your data. I mean, I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this book, AJ, but there's this delicious, wonderful book called The Rise of Surveillance Capitalism. It's by a retired Harvard professor named Shoshana Zuboff, Zuboff. And it is a frightening book for people who care about privacy. It describes the amount of data that these data mining companies are collecting about every single one of us, our credit card, what we spend on our credit card, just any interaction we have. And, it's really a frightening story when you read the book. I had a friend who started reading it, a very thoughtful, smart person, lawyer, and she stopped reading it. It's too scary.
It's terrifying.
I don't want to know about it.
Yeah, it's like it seems like, especially of late, the narrative has really been, as with anything nowadays, everything is transfixed at the national level with what's going on with politics, with senators and the president and all that. And we can't forget the forest for the trees here, where these companies have all this data that these government agencies are utilizing. That's just what we're hearing about. They're also using this data for all sorts of things, intercompany wise. Like they're selling it to each other. There's ad agencies. There's sketchy data harvesting groups.
You look at 23andMe.
Yeah.
And you spend $99.99 you send them a sample of your saliva from inside the cheek, and they, in return for that money, that $100, they tell you the continent of origin, whether you're Finnish or German or Welsh or whatever. They don't make the big money on the $100 you send in. They claim they anonymize it. They anonymize it, and then they sell it to Big Pharma for huge amounts of money. I mean, that's just one example. We've all had the experience on our cell phone. We, send an email about some product, and all of a sudden, within minutes, we get an ad for that product. That's because these companies are, the big money is these companies that collect these data and sell them to businesses. They are doing they're predicting behavior.
Yeah. And it goes to the international level. I mean, that's one of the issues many people are having with TikTok right now. Where is that data going? Is the CCP over in China collecting this information? Is it using it?
Yes, they are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like all the background processes. There's some real tech nuts that have looked through all the processes that TikTok collects on the back end. And guess what? It's taking that information and keeping it, and they're putting it in relation to other data to figure out what's going on with social media. They're using it to figure out how to sell better ads, and guess what? How to manipulate whatever thing, whether it's politics or your behavior.
Exactly. And another example. The Trump campaign, the Obama campaign, Biden campaign, boy, they have all sorts of data about you to try and predict what your voting predilections are and how they should reach out to you, whether they should reach out to you, and what fashion they should reach out to you, based on your purchasing behavior. That was the deep strength of the Obama campaign, the first Obama campaign. They were far ahead of the who he run against? Romney. No, it was Romney or McCain.
No, it was McCain for the first election.
They were far ahead of the McCain campaign in that. Now, Trump and that's what Jared Kushner did for the Trump campaign the first two times. Trump ran. So, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of also the consequence of mainstream legacy media kind of falling off of being the main way to get a hold of people. Is now everyone goes to your Facebooks, your Googles, your Twitters, and does every ad you can possibly imagine. Yeah, you're still getting that those stupid Nikki Haley flyers every 30 seconds, but guess what? You're going to be also getting ads on your Facebook every 2 seconds. Like
God forbid you contribute to a political party or a candidate.
Yeah. Anytime you give your money or data to a political party,
everybody who's running for any office knows about it. It feels like, anyway.
Yeah. Well, especially with the Democrats, they've been super effective at utilizing that data and keeping a stranglehold on that data so they get the candidates they want to go through, especially at the national level. But I think Buckley's pretty well known for doing that too here.
Yeah. Well, when I ran for police commissioner in Portsmouth, it was a citywide elected position, and I was able to access data that compiled by an individual that identified it was nonpartisan, but I wanted to target Democrats, who the Democrats were in Portsmouth that regularly voted in municipal elections, right? What did that do? It made it easier to identify which doors I was going to knock on. And that's low, that's small scale data, but every political campaign does that. and in a much, much, much more sophisticated way.
Yeah, and that's the future. I mean, it's only going to greatly expand, especially as I mean, CNN. I mean, some of their key shows only get like 400,000 views a month or something stupid. Like your basic YouTuber that has 10,000 or 10 to 100,000 subscriber counts able to hit those easily on a daily basis if they feel so inclined. Let alone live streamers and everything like that. Like data is the future of politics, and Obama saw it, and his staff. Trump has capitalized on it, and now we're going to see how it disseminates now too, because it's so inexpensive.
Biden did a good job
Yeah.
in 2020. So in that context, this is a small step, but it's an important first step in trying to carve out some regulatory space in terms of businesses using data. It's got an enforcement mechanism. The AG's office, is enforcer. They're going to have to hire, I would wager, hire some more lawyers. There's going to be a lot of work for them. It may be some businesses said, the hell with it. I'm not going to, I have this data, I collect it, I don't really do anything with it. I'm going to stop collecting it.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, that's kind of the advantage of having some form of enforcement mechanism around something like this. A, it means people will actually maybe pay attention to it, but smaller groups that maybe don't need to necessarily be collecting your information will maybe be a little more smart, which prevents data hacks and things like that from being as catastrophic.
Exactly, exactly. So good first step, good solid first step. And the last thing I want to point out about it is, as you mentioned earlier, and as was the case with Part 1, Article 2B, the Information Privacy Amendment, which focuses solely on information, on data, personal or private data. It's not a broad privacy amendment. It's the only information privacy amendment in the United States that focuses solely on that. It was a bipartisan effort.
Yeah.
Privacy is bipartisan. It doesn't break down in a neat and tidy way along political lines. There's Democrats that are in favor of it, Republicans are in favor of it, Libertarians are in favor of it. There's Democrats, the high-tech Democrats who, yeah, I like my own personal privacy, but in terms of technology and the business I work, maybe not, It's not a partisan discussion when we talk about privacy.
Yeah.
Like
the scary story that's brought up a lot are these tech executives like your Zuckerbergs and such that live and breathe in this all day. They make their ungodly amount of money off of it, but they in turn say, no, of course I don't let my kids use these services. Of course I keep my family off of them as much as humanly possible, because they know what's going on, and maybe we as consumers of these
maybe we should model our behavior.
Exactly. We should plan accordingly. Like there's a reason why, once again, this has been a longer debate, and especially in the intellectual property world, is terms of service and the complexity of them and the manipulative nature of the way they're written, so that they're crazy long. You don't necessarily want to read it, but you got to sign off of it, because hey, guess what? You got to be on Facebook or LinkedIn or anything like that if you want to exist in modern society. Finding jobs, like working with the charity maybe you work with. You want to go to your church or something. That's how we communicate nowadays.
So it's good news.
It's very good news. So what do you think are some of the next steps lawmakers should be considering to kind of take it to that next level?
They got to think about use restrictions, more aggressive use restrictions on the data. That's something they gotta sort out. They gotta think about making sure that there's exceptions for government agencies. I mean, now we're starting to transition. They got to think about prohibiting businesses from giving private and personal data to the government, right?
Yeah, don't be was it Don Lemon was saying that was it Don Lemon? I can't remember who it was the other day was just saying something about that, but it was something to the effect of well, oh no, it's Ketanji Brown Jackson. That's who I'm thinking of. Supreme Court.
Oh,
Justice.
very smart Supreme Court Justice.
That on the other, her takes on that.
She's the smartest one on that bench.
Sure, we'll go with that. But either way, I had some real big red flags going in my head with some of her comments when it came to what the government having access to data.
I know. Even though she's really smart, it's privacy is weird in two ways. One, there's no absolute objective neutral definition of what's private and what isn't private, right? What is privacy? Nobody can define it for all purposes. Context is everything. You talk about data privacy, then you talk about reproductive rights privacy. They're both about privacy, but is there a definition of privacy that covers both of those in the way so privacy is very, very dependent on the context within which you're talking about it, number one. And number two, which makes it even harder, is privacy is intensely personal.
Yeah.
We all know people who are privacy nuts, and we all know people who could care less about sharing their data. And, the masses in between those two poles. What's private to me isn't private to you, and vice versa. And that's what makes it so hard to do broad brush privacy regulation. And that's why.
What it kind of reminds me of is if a police officer goes up to you and wants to search your car, should you say yes or no? It's like, oh, I got nothing to hide. I don't care. Take a look at it. What's it worth? It's like, but no, there's an inherent privacy you have as an American citizen that you should definitely consider. And if we are loose when it comes to the ability to have that right and we just give it away, there are long-term consequences to that. Slippery slope.
Funny you should use that example. A couple sessions ago, I wrote a bill for then Senator Harold French, a Republican, that said when the police stop your car and give you a speeding ticket, and then they ask you, you mind if I search your car? What the bill says is and the bill passed and got signed by the governor. What the bill says is the police have to inform you that you have a constitutional right to refuse to have your car searched, and there are no consequences to exercising that right. And if you agree to have your car searched, you got to sign a piece of paper that says you've agreed to it. It doesn't fix the problem, but it puts a little bit more of a barrier between the police and the privacy of your car, as you were speaking of.
I'm going to be pulling that out as a YouTube short, and hopefully that gets a bunch of traffic, because I want people to realize that right in other states to capitalize on the fact we've done that. Because that's
only New Hampshire is one of 7 states that have that.
That's awesome. All right. So we're going to close the segment here. Buzz will be back on the show here in a couple days again. For some reason, we'll be dressed the same way. I don't know. You guys figured that out in the YouTube world, how that managed to happen. Professor Buzz Scherr, UNH Franklin Pierce School of Law, thanks so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
Law.unh.edu if you want to learn more about what they're doing over there. I worked there for a long time, so I have a lot of respect for the work they're doing over at UNH Franklin Pierce. NewEnglandTake.com. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're checking out the YouTube version of the show. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll talk to you soon.